Good evening, everyone. Jeff here at Astroscoop for another astrology live stream. Today is Friday, July 5th, 2024, and I'm going to start slow. Just give a few minutes in case anyone wants to pop in. I know sometimes people pop in 10 or 15 minutes late, so I'll take my time and let people come, or they can catch the replay afterwards. So these live streams, just for anyone that's new, they're weekly. Right now, I'm having them right now, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on YouTube at Astroscoop 3801. And sometimes they're Saturdays at 7. But for a few weeks now, they've been on Fridays here at 7 on YouTube. And I'm also on Instagram and Twitter. So check me out there as well. But tonight I had a little trouble trying to figure out my points for tonight to talk about. But after I got sort of halfway through, I realized that it is the new moon in Cancer. I don't know why I didn't know that yesterday. I wasn't following the calendar, the astrological calendar, close enough. But we're going to talk about that as well, that it's July 5th, early in the month still, but it's a new moon phase in the sky in astrology. So that's pretty cool. So right now it looks like we have maybe one or two people in. Carolyn says namaste. Namaste, Carolyn. Thank you for coming. And we have a couple other people that come in and out usually with the first 5 minutes. So we'll see. And today, so I looked to the sunset over here, and it's 7:02. So the sunset now is about 2 minutes earlier than it was before. So what I always like to look at is I always like to see how the light changes around, around your house, around your windows. You can see the light at different parts of the day and the shadows, how they change. And that coincides with all the animals and everything, the sunlight, the animals. It's really, really interesting. I wonder about if all astrologers, regardless of the system they follow, if all astrologers really, really appreciate the season and the moment it is in the month with the sign. I wonder about that, because some astrologers are sun sign astrologers. Of course, on these live streams, we're talking about the period that is the sun sign, but we're also talking about other pieces of the chart or horoscope that incorporates this energy of the sign. So that would be curious. I would love to know any other astrologers, how you incorporate the season and the current day and week period into your practice or your astrology, how you would use that. That would be very interesting to know. So yes, today is July 5th, 2024. It is the new moon. So the new moon is, now what's going to happen is the Cancer period, the energy is going to wax towards the full moon. So the new moon, even though it's not the beginning of the month, technically, the new moon is a reset. So you could think of the astrological calendar for the month or the weeks. This is the reset. So this is kind of like the July 1st of the month, because it's the peak. It's like peak Cancer energy because it's conjoined with the moon in the sky. So it's like a strong Cancerian Moonchild Crab energy that you can get in this period. And then we will wax towards the full moon. And then, of course, we'll get much closer to the last period of Cancer, and then the cusp with Leo. And we'll talk about the last period of Cancer tonight. I'm just going to give it another minute or two, see if anyone else comes in. But the Cancer energy in general, if you've heard my last two live streams, about the first and second decanates. The Cancer energy really is kind of perplexing in some ways, I think. And it goes along with the water sign element. The water sign element is mysterious. And all three water signs have some of that mystery to them. But Cancer is particularly, particularly perplexing sometimes, I think, because of the moon and the ebb and flow of the tides and the mood changes that a Cancer planet can go through and can be tuned into. So I feel like, as much as I've known about Cancer, the Moonchild sign, all these years, by me doing this research for the live stream and talking out loud, it's giving me a whole new perspective on the energy, which is great, because I want to keep it fresh and I want to update it. And I want to get more feedback from people that are born during these periods, more comments, and share those comments so that we can get a dialogue going and more people can learn about it. It's really a fascinating thing. So, all right. So let's get into it. So happy new moon. So we'll talk about this a little later, but here's the new moon right here. There's the sun and moon conjunct at 14 degrees of Cancer, and Venus is also there. So we have sun, moon, and Venus in Cancer. Very, very strong Moonchild energy. And of course, every horoscope and every chart has Cancer somewhere in there, so you can figure out what it's activating and what it might be asking you in your chart. That's where it's asking you, what do you feel? I feel fill in the blank. And I think the Cancer energy is something that Cancer can kind of, to me, it can kind of go from zany to irritable, like 0 to 60, kind of, and then right back to zany or silly or loony or just quiet, and retiring. Cancer people always fascinate me because you can underestimate them because their strength to Cancer. I mentioned that last week. The grit and tenacity of the symbols of the crab and the Moonchild and turtles, which is in the constellation of Cancer, or connected to the Cancer mythology with the constellation, which is interesting. Yeah, turtles. But the Cancer period is particularly perplexing because of the moon. So the Cancer period today, we're in the second decan of Cancer. So if you missed that, I won't talk about that tonight again. Please check out my live stream from last week, and you'll see all sorts of examples. We talked about all the points and then all the celebrities. So Cancer 3 is going to start right around July 11th, and it goes to the 18th or 19th. So you're looking at 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. So right around 9 days, 8-9 days or so. This Cancer 3 period is the moon ruler, as all Cancers are, but Neptune is the co-ruler. Last week we talked about Pluto being co-ruling the second decan. This is the third decan, and it's co-ruled by Neptune, which adds a Pisces Neptunian flavor to Cancers born this week. So Cancer 3, July 11th to the 18th. And this would relate to approximately moving into maturity, into young adult. This would be more like someone that would be similar to a Saturn return age, which starts right around 28. So all of us from our natal chart, all of us right around 28, sometimes starts at 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, you go through your Saturn return and it's completed. So the transiting Saturn planet returns to your specific Saturn planet in your chart, and it hits that exact degree. Thus, you get that return for responsibility and growing up. So I equate this Cancer 3 period to sort of late 20s probably, because the other ones were more young adult. So this is like someone sort of out of college or out of grad school and has already gotten a job and looking at building their life, maybe a family, career, and looking like at the barrel of 30, looking down the barrel of 30 and figuring out what the 30s is going to look like for them. Know what's interesting about this period is I haven't known a lot of people born this particular week. And the periods, when you research the periods and you try to think about, at least most astrologers think about, okay, who have I known during this period? Did I date someone? Did I have a brother or sister? Did I have a family member? Did I have a friend? Did I play a sport with someone? It's funny how when we think back to all the people we've known in our lives, friends, acquaintances, activity partners, we can remember conversations if people happen to tell us their birthday. And most astrologers are it's like we have a keen radar for birthdays. It's like we just hear it. At least I do. So this Cancer 3 period, I haven't known many people born this week. There are a couple family members that we had that were born between the 11th and 18th. But I can't think of any acquaintances or friends I ever had in my life born that week. So I'll do my best to decode this week based on my research and, of course, looking at all the celebrities. So that is a good place to start with astrology. And if you want to know more about the sign, and let's just say you listen to my live stream and it's not enlightening enough, or you listen to someone else and you're like, that lady's saying the same thing this guy said about Cancer. Isn't there anything else? One way to expand that is to look up famous people. Not only read about their lives, but look at their craft, look at their artwork or their songs that they wrote or the movies that they acted in, or if they were dancers or gymnasts or athletes. Look at what they did. Think about the element that you're in and the sign, and then look at their faces as well. Read their faces, and that gives you information. If you just concentrate on that, information comes to you about, and I get a real sense of this period when I look up 10, 12, 15 celebrities, and I start looking at them and I start thinking about the movies and the music, and it gives me information. Doesn't mean I'm 100% accurate or correct, but it gives you an essence, if you will. It gives you an essence for the sign of Cancer, but also the particular period that we're in based on the zodiac cycle and the weather and the earth and all that. So similar to a Saturn return, which starts at age 28. So this is a sign and period about persuasion. So Cancer people, the key phrase is I feel. And Cancer people are all about feelings, obviously, with the water element. Water is feelings, emotions. But Cancer people of all decanates feel in different ways because of the co-ruler being different and also their moon sign in their chart. So the moon sign in everyone's natal or birth chart gives you an indication of how you are emotionally and how you react to people or react to your environment. But it's most important to Cancer out of all the 12 signs. It's vital for a Cancer person to know their moon because they're ruled by the moon. So their sun in Cancer is not ruled by any other planet, but it's ruled by the moon. Whereas every other sign, their ruling planet of their sun sign is something else other than the moon. Like Gemini was Mercury and Taurus was Venus. So that gives Cancer the unique quality of being the most watery. In a sense, they're the strongest kind of water sign, most watery because of the moon, I think, and the changes and fluctuations of the moon. So persuasion. Cancer people born this week can be very persuasive, and that ties into them having private drives. I know that's kind of an odd phrase, but private drives to me is like it's not necessarily a public career, external environment, but there are drives that they have that are that they sometimes just keep to themselves, and they will quietly work towards with that tenacity. And because of Neptune ruling or co-ruling in this decade, that gives them not only the privacy, which we saw in the Pluto decade, Pluto co-ruler in the last period, but it gives them a creative, almost fanciful quality. But again, I think they keep that to themselves. They don't always show that. And that's part of the defense, if you will. I keep saying this word defense about Cancer, but that's what I keep getting with Cancer, is just this sort of a defensive stance, unfortunately. And so their persuasion is really strong. And they can persuade because they're tuned into their environment. They're very observant. And I mentioned last week how Cancer 2s can pick up on your emotional language more so than your mental. It's more emotional. So Cancer 3 would continue that with the Neptune co-ruler. And the persuasiveness also comes from that Neptune co-ruler as well. And that can become manipulative if the person doesn't have good values or good morals. That could very easily, if they're highly persuasive, could become manipulative. Now, we all manipulate things in our environment to some extent, naturally or to survive. And I would assume that the majority of the time, a Cancer 3 person is not doing it deliberately. However, because of the defense, they may be inclined to try to persuade people to get what they want, but not so much in a charming way like Gemini would or Libra. It's not a persuasive charm like an air sign might have. It's more of an emotional bidding, if you will, emotional bid. So it's like an auction, and they're auctioning, their emotions and their bids. So they're trying to get their needs met. There's no doubt there's some self-serving qualities here that they want their needs met, but most likely before yours are met. So Cancer can be very giving and very loving and devoted, but they can also be too much not centered necessarily, because that would be more like Aries, but more self-possessed or more self. Not sure what the phrase I'm looking for, but there's something within that shell because of the defensiveness and the protectiveness that they're only going to let certain people in to a certain extent. And that's a shame, I think, because what I sense with the planets of people that I know that have Cancer planets, can be incredibly loving and caring. And it's so interesting to see how it's almost like the Cancer planet, the Cancer person wants to show their feelings and they don't. They want to be vulnerable and they don't. And that's all of us to some extent. But Cancer in particular, because of the moon. It's because of those changes, the changeable moon there. So those moods can change hourly or can change daily. And this Cancer period, being the Neptune period, would be highly sensitive, I think, to the moon changes, the daily and kind of bi-weekly moon changes in the astrological calendar, with the moon changing every 2 to 2.5 days. So if you have a baby born, we'll look at the chart a little later. If you have a baby born tonight, this is their chart, his or her chart. But then if you have a baby born in 3 days from now on the 8th, that baby will have a different moon sign. They'll have all the other same placements, but they'll have a different rising sign, a different moon sign. They will have a different sign in the house of the midheaven, which is the public. So the chart would be vastly different for a baby born tonight and then a baby born on the 8th, but they both be Cancer with the same outer planets. So that's definitely something Cancer people could watch for, is to, I think I mentioned last week, accountability. It's really good to have Cancer people have people in their life that they can be accountable to. So they are definitely patient. Neptune adds a quiet, retiring quality, I would think, to this period with Cancer. So last week we looked at Pluto, which adds an intense quality to those Cancer people, like I mentioned, like Geraldo Rivera, Sylvester Stallone, Tom Hanks, Kevin Bacon. It lends their Cancerian sensitivity and lunacy is more intense. With this period, it's not as intense per se, but it's highly sensitive. And that's something they will also try to hide because of that vulnerability, I think. So they're definitely patient with the ability to observe emotional environment. So very, very savvy and strongly emotional. And I've said this whole Cancer period that Cancer is not a sign to underestimate, because Cancer is strong. Cancer has strength. And because Cancer is often starting from a defensive posture, unfortunately, if they've been hurt, betrayed, or slighted, if they're starting with people in a relationship or a friendship, starting with a defensive posture, it's, even if the other person they're not able to observe their emotional language like the Cancer person can, it'll still come across at some point. So Cancer is one of those signs, especially this period too. Cancer is one of those signs that really needs to continue to learn and grow and make sure that they grow, because Cancer can be really stuck, not in the same way that like a Taurus person could be stuck, not an earth sign, but there is a certain rigidity to the Cancer crab, symbology. There's a rigidity to that shell, that Cancers can be flowing one minute and rigid the next. And if they feel slighted, especially Cancers born in the second decan, can lash out. So they have that ability to observe their emotional environment, and these Cancerians are no exception. So because of all that observational strength, especially emotional, I think I've mentioned before that Cancer people tend to be great with comedy and the public. Cancer people would be wonderful community organizers, working at the PTA at your school, or the president of the PTA, or I definitely think of Pisces and Cancer for working with parents and kids and activities and things like that. Cancer would be great for that any period, but especially this period with the Neptune and their ability to persuade people. But there's a financial savvy here too with Cancers. So any of you that have had or known people born between July 11th and 18th or 19th, you'll probably know that there was a frugal quality to the person. There's a frugality. And no matter how much or how little money they had, they probably were, depending on how they were brought up, they probably were pretty savvy with money and know how to hold on to it and know how to save it. So it's not necessarily that Cancers born this week would automatically be millionaires because they're saving every penny and never spend it, but they would spend wisely. That's something I've always felt about Cancer ever since I've been into astrology into my teens, is that Cancer was that frugal sign that has a sense of value, kind of like Taurus, but a more of emotional value. With Taurus, it's more of a possession, tangible. It's material, it's tangible. But Cancer is not a tangible sign. It's not a land animal, right? It's a sea creature, and it's the crab and the turtles and all these, interesting points on the mythology of the constellations. So there's definitely a financial savvy there. And both of my grandmothers were born during this period. I just recently found out, because I forgot, that one of my grandmothers was July 15th. So, and then we also have a family member that's alive she's also July 15th, who's also extremely good with money and very savvy, very smart, very shrewd. So good sense of value there. And another reason why Cancers are good with money and planning enterprises is because they're quiet. Cancers just sit there and they'll listen. They may not listen to you, but they listen to the emotional energy of the environment. So we're a Gemini person, like our friend Karen Karst, that's in the chat often. I hope Karen comes and hope she's well. But Karen Karst, she mentioned to me that she's a Gemini. And so a Gemini is observant in that more mental, mercurial way about facts and things going, activity. But Cancer is the emotional, like that emotional observer. So especially I would say in a woman, in a mother or a grandmother, that would be an incredibly protective, smothering kind of parenting or grandparenting, thing. So that's something for Cancer 3s to really be careful of, is the smother. And again, adding that with a defensive posture can be quite negative. So they have that love there, they have that gentleness and that devotion. If they can just, it's not even letting down a guard. It's more just like, it's like just weakening the armor a little bit or something like that, the shell. So financial savvy, and it's a sense of value for things and people. So it's things like, a Cancer 3 would be a great estate sale person or estate appraiser or broker or something. That would be perfect for a Cancer 3 person. Would do really well with cleaning out houses and selling stuff and, making money and flipping furniture and, the home shows. I could see that. But also people, it's like Cancer has a sense of what people are worth. So a Cancer person during this period could make a good boss or manager if they know the potential of someone or a potential worker. All right, so we're almost half hour in. So the Neptune Decan adds, what did I write there? Okay, I didn't do that right. Decan adds excess. So the Neptune Decan, which is a bit of a Pisces flavor. So the interesting thing, when you look at a period of the signs, so a Cancer born this period is ruled by the moon and co-ruled by Neptune. So it's not like a Cancer having a Pisces planet. That's totally different. So if you're a Cancer person and you have a natal Pisces planet to go with your Cancer, that's pure Pisces energy. When you have the co-ruler of Neptune, it's more of the essence of Neptune rather than Pisces particular. So it's more dreamy or fantasy, glamour, and persuasion, and possibly deception as well. So that it takes on the planet, kind of colors of the planet with the co-ruler, rather than a Cancer person having a Pisces planet. And that would be obviously a Pisces influence directly. So just a little bit about the decanates there. So Neptune can add the excess, and there's always an overload of emotions with Cancer planets. So that Cancer energy the Cancer emotions needs good outlets for those emotions. So it's not necessarily like a sport or dancing like some of the other more active signs need to get their stress out, through dancing or playing basketball or something. But with Cancer, it would be definitely something like gardening or music or art or, any of that, or acting. It's really good for the moon to get rid of some of that excess, that overload of emotions kind of thing. So that brings me to spiritual discipline helps excessive ways. Cancers born this period need spiritual discipline, I think. So all those emotions, they can get caught up in their own kind of selfish drives and needs. It doesn't mean that they can't care or take care of others well. It just means they can get stuck in their own negativity kind of thing. And I talked about the past 2 weeks about the tendency of Cancer with bottled up emotions to lash out and maybe even be involved in crime or negative things, because that Cancer emotion the negative emotions are so strong. So that's why there needs to be an outlet. Like Mike Tyson, the boxer, his outlet is hitting a bag, hopefully rather than hurting a person, sort of thing. So spiritual discipline is something that can really help all Cancer people, and but especially Cancer 3 period with the Neptune influence, and the spiritual have an outlook, and also practice what I said last week is to try to practice non-attachment to some extent with people. And that's very, very hard for a Cancer planet to practice non-attachment. But the Cancer planet has aspects, and then it has the moon. So there's other things in the chart that can color that can make it the Cancer energy lighter and different. So that's why you have to look specifically at the moon and other things there. So we always think of opposites. So in 6 months from now, we'll be talking about the Capricorn 3 period in the winter. And it's good for them to incorporate the Capricorn 3, which is late Capricorn, and to increase, the arrow goes up, increase courage. So that's a theme for all the Cancer decanates is, we all have fears. Everybody has fears. And a lot of people believe that sometimes our current issues and fears are from other lives. You can't blame everything on your childhood or your parents. Sure, our parents shaped, and our friends and all our early environment that shaped who we are and how we react to things. But many times I think there's behavior patterns, self-sabotage that we do in relationships, and all sorts of things that come from other lives, other times that we may have lived, and not this conscious period from the last, however old you are, 50, 60, 70, 80 years ago or whatever. So I think it's a whole combination there. And I think to incorporate the Capricorn 3 is, in general, that Capricorn is more hard-headed and not as concerned with the approval maybe of another person. So that can help the Cancer person as well. Get that courage and reduce those fears. And maybe that's why some Cancer planets, there is that defense. It's like, well, you're definitely not going to hurt me. I'm just going to be defensive. But there are other ways to just defend yourself, and you can just be vigilant and stay on your toes and be ready to move mentally. We can teach people how to perceive our each other or ourselves. Teach other people how to perceive that. So I think Cancer people could do that. Cancer people could talk about a fear that they have without being completely vulnerable and reducing all their strength. The other person might even see that as a sign of strength and respect that, and then not engage with that. So again, communication in relationships, right? Communication is so big. And for the quieter, more introverted signs that may not be as verbal, it's important for the quieter signs, especially the water signs, to try to come out of their shell, so to speak, and try to talk more and express more to your loved one, your spouse or your partner, and about what's going on, what's going on with you. So I think that's a big lesson for the water signs. Is mystery is nice and mystery is fun, but sometimes you can be too mysterious, and people kind of need to know what's going on a little bit. So yeah, I'm talking to you, Pisces and Scorpio as well. So the water element, which you just mentioned, the 3 water signs, don't insist you know how to help. So this is something I've heard over the years from people that I've given readings to or coached or worked with about people with Cancer or people that are strongly Cancer. I don't think I've ever heard of someone saying, I have a Cancer mom or a Cancer dad or whatever, that doesn't know what's best for me. And I'm not talking about just parents either. Like you might have a friend, a best friend, or a coach or somebody that is a Cancer. So it's very There's a big lesson in there with the water element, with this late Cancer, to not insist you know how to help other people. Let other people ask for it. That's a big lesson for Cancer. A tough lesson, because they need to be needed. So they're almost always going to see that as see you rejecting them. But if you just don't need help at that moment, you're not rejecting them. It's just you don't need help. Maybe you don't need help today on Friday, but maybe you need it on Sunday. So if the Cancer watery nature can back off and let people come to them, that would work wonders. So that's another lesson. So increase natural confidence lesson. And what do I mean by natural confidence? Well, anything that any of us do, it doesn't have to be tangible success in the outer world. It doesn't have to be defined as success from some board of rich people, in suits. 10 people in suits in a boardroom. That's not a definition of success. There are, sure, making a lot of money is one version of success. Getting a certain job title, writing a certain amount of books or whatever. But for a Cancer person to increase their natural confidence, find out what they're good at, because they are savvy and they are creative and they're patient and tenacious. So, I would think I could see a Cancer 3 person born this period, doing a huge painting that takes 6 months. I wouldn't be able to do it for 2 weeks. I know I wouldn't. I would just give up. But I know they could do it. 6 months later, they'll be like, woo, after 75 days, look what I did, So that's Cancer. They can bide their time, they can be patient, and they can hang in there. So if Cancer can use that to their advantage, they'll be naturally more confident, and I think therefore less defensive. And I don't know if it's that easy, but that's what I think. But it must be hard to be. This also goes for Cancer rising people. It must be hard to where you always have to put feelers out. I can feel it from them. I don't even have any Cancer planets. And I can feel when the Cancer sun or rising is putting a feeler out on me to see how safe the situation is. And this is not with any history of major conflict. So the Cancer, it seems like subconsciously the Cancer energy is automatically, again, that could be something from a past life if someone chose to be a Cancer in this lifetime, right? Or chose to be a Cancer rising. Last time they weren't that sign and they were different. So they're choosing that sensitivity to put the feeler out on you to see, is this water safe? I like to be in the 5-foot water, but I don't want to go in the deep end off the diving board. So that's a good analogy, I think, as these next couple weeks as we're wrapping up Cancer, because Cancer's coming off the diving board, and they really want to know how deep that water is. Their water is really deep, but they want to know how deep your water is. Whereas what if the Cancer person took a risk and said, okay, in this one scenario, I'm not going to be defensive, and I'm not going to close up unless the person gives me a reason to. I think I've said this before. In my opinion, Cancer people are very hard to reach, and Cancer rising is even harder. Very, very hard to reach. But they have lovely qualities. I like the twinkle in their eye. I like the way they smile. I love their humor. Awesome humor. Sun and Cancer and Cancer rising people, their humor is great. They love music and art. And when they're feeling calm, they have that little moony smile. They're great. So why can't we see more of that? I know I'm going on a sermon here for Cancer. I hope Cancer people see this. But that is something, increase that natural confidence in just, everything requires a little risk in life. Everything. It's all measuring. It's all like risk is everything. Everything we do is risk on a spectrum, right? It's a whole spectrum of risk. Some that's really, really low, then there's 0, then there's like +5, then it's like getting real risky. And so this axis, Capricorn, Cancer, Cancer, Capricorn. So always remember the opposites. Very, cautious. Cautious would be the general store for this town. If the Capricorn Cancer general store, the town, it would be called caution. Come in, but no shirt, no shoes, no service, kind of thing. That's kind of Cancer. So that's a lesson. And it's important, I think, for Cancer people to call a ceasefire with themselves, not even necessarily with others. And any of you that have known a Cancer person that's strongly Cancerian, especially the women, will know there's a bit, dare I say, a bit of a tortured quality there to them. I know it sounds a little dramatic, but again, a lot depends on their childhood and maybe past lives and how they were treated, and if they were able to gain confidence throughout their life, natural confidence. But they should call a ceasefire with themselves, because think about it. If the Cancer sun or the Cancer rising person is that defensive with you or me, imagine how they are with themselves. Imagine how thorny they're pinching themselves, because they are. There's no way they're not. So Cancers, lighten up with yourself. Loosen up a little bit with yourself. Try it. Everything doesn't have to be behind a war wall sort of thing. But again, a lot of that comes from the water, the water element. The water signs are very, very layered and very deep. And again, you got to look to the moon sign in the Cancer person's chart. That will give so much more bingo. I've known a couple Cancer women where their moon was in Libra, and that helped them lighten up a little bit. The Libra helped them lighten up, and they were a little more social, a little more maybe they had a side that wanted harmony more rather than some of the emotional discord that they might be used to as a Cancer. So the moon is really important. I think I mentioned I know a guy, he has the moon in Leo, so that he has more, assertiveness and confidence than your average Cancer, I would think, adding to the Leo. I don't know what his aspects are, but you have to look for that. And you have to look at the moon, the house, and the aspects and all that. It's so important, especially for Cancer people and this period. And you would look to Neptune as well, because Neptune's the co-ruler. So Carolyn says, a general store called Caution. That is clever and hilarious. Thanks, Carolyn. Yeah, it just came to me. I just saw a picture that would be the store name, and I'm not trying to, bash or be negative to Cancer here. Just trying to be real about the essence, the energy of it. It's, we all can choose. We can all choose to try to be better, and we can all rise above some of the flaws of our signs and our chart. We can evolve beyond it. I think a lot of us do. So a ceasefire with yourself, that's always a good thing. And that would help curb the bossy or judgmental side of a Cancer born this week. And that's the interesting thing, is because a Cancer born this week can be very funny and gentle and quiet, but then you can strike a chord in them and they can all of a sudden be bossy and judgmental with you. And you could be like, whoa, where'd that come from? And that's due to their feeling of a slight, or also their insights into you in the situation. It's almost like if their emotional radar is so strong, they can't turn it off, but maybe turn it down. We all have to turn certain things down that we observe, in our environment. And like I talked about, the very first week of Cancer, late June into early July, is, which we talked about a couple weeks ago, is empathic and directly picking up on the feelings of other people. But here, there's also a little bit of that, but with the Neptune, there's more of more insights, I think, into human nature and into people. So I think that can bug the Cancerian or crab nature somewhat. All right. So I'm not sure if anyone else came in. There was a couple other people. Oh, we're at 45 minutes in. Okay. All right. So now we'll talk about the celebs. And just a reminder that every time I pick the celebrities for my live stream, they always coincide with this particular period that I'm talking about. So I try not to have just any Cancer person, like we talked about. Those men I mentioned before, they're born this week because it's the 5th. But we're talking about the 11th to the 18th or 19th, which will be the last period. So all these people fall within that period, which are moon rule people with sub-ruler, and the co-ruler is Neptune. So not as zany, but they can also be a little flighty, maybe with the Neptune, flighty, but also very creative, and can kind of go off the rails, I think, a little bit. So we have Ian Curtis. He's passed. He was the lead singer of a group called Joy Division, and he was very instrumental in the alternative music scene in Britain in the late 70s that brought pretty much all pop and alternative music to the States. He was very instrumental in that, and very, very, very dark, moody music. Joy Division, which I think was they took in relation to the war or something like that. And then very, very dark. Christine McVie, who is one of the co-founders of like the second generation of Fleetwood Mac. So like Stevie Nicks is like the main star of Fleetwood Mac, but Christine McVie is the other female voice you hear in some of those Fleetwood Mac songs. And I think she added a beautiful watery quality. And if you look at her face, so moony. Like if you look at Stevie Nicks, who's a Gemini, she looks more like a mystic to me, or more like the twins. But Christine McVie looks totally different. She looks more moony, and she has that kind of almost like that kind of crab look. Very, very good. Ken Jeong is a comedian and actor, and very, very funny. And I think he's also a former doctor. I think he is or was a real doctor in real life, but now he just does comedy. He's very, very funny and wacky. Matthew Seligman, he's a new wave bassist who played with a lot of big stars in the 70s and 80s, and very, 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 very smooth, kind of watery bass. Very interesting. Linda Ronstadt, the singer, very, very talented, and definitely with the eyes and that her facade, definitely very moony looking. Stuart Copeland, the former drummer from the Police from Britain, probably one of the best pop rock drummers of all time, just amazing. And he's quite sarcastic and funny. He does these videos, these tutorials, and he shows people how to do drums to Police songs or drum lines or licks. And he also talks about how he used to fight with his band members as well, because he was very moody and had a big ego. So he's gotten to the point where he's very honest and forthcoming. So, but incredible drummer, Stuart Copeland, just amazing. Will Ferrell, who started out in Saturday Night Live in the 90s, SNL, and just grew into a huge comedy star. Obviously, Will Ferrell's been in, dozens of movies and skits and the like on TV. And he has quite a look. I mean, he's got that wild hair, but again, he's got that smile and the mooniness. And he could be really. I used to think he was the funniest guy on the planet. At one point in the 90s, he was the funniest person. And I don't think that now, but he definitely has an ability to strike a chord with the public, as a lot of Cancer people do, especially this period. So Ed Kowalczyk, He's the lead singer of a group called Live from the 90s. And his music is very emotional. It talks about women's issues and the environment and a lot of things that are very, very human and personal. And he has a bald head and very round, and he looks like a crescent moon to me, his face. So I don't know. Again, all these people have different rising signs, which can contribute to your physicality. But these Cancer people tend to have a certain look. And the Neptune decan, the co-ruler, I think gives a more of like a fey quality, and they look different to me than the Cancer 2 period people that I mentioned last week. There's a similar Cancer look, but there's something that's different. Ed Kowalczyk, really good. Nicolette Larson, singer from the 70s and 80s, and kind of folky singer, pop singer. What wonderful voice, a lot of feeling in her voice. Awesome. And really, really good as far as a Cancer example. Henry David Thoreau, Thoreau and Emerson, Massachusetts connection. What an interesting, when you look at pictures of him, kind of he's one of the roughest looking Cancer people I could find, just kind of disheveled with his, the beard and his hair and deep wrinkles, things like that. So very interesting, but obviously incredibly profound and savvy and tuned into the human condition. Bob Casale from Devo, from the pop new wave group Devo. They helped to innovate new wave pop music in the 70s and 80s. And he was also very involved in activism with the colleges and causes that he felt emotional about. And he has said that in interviews. Rembrandt van Rijn, not sure how to pronounce his last name, but of course Rembrandt, very watery. David Pack, a singer from Ambrosia. Ambrosia is one of those yacht rock, soft rock groups that you hear on the radio, on FM late at night, and beautiful. I've seen Ambrosia in concert before. They're awesome. They're so chill, but they're not boring. Beautiful. And David Pack, he has again a lot of emotion. Ginger Rogers. So these last two, Ginger Rogers and Nancy Olson, are old school actresses, and they qualify this decade as the more glamorous side, right? If you look at pictures of them, you look up Ginger Rogers, not obviously very beautiful. Same with Nancy Olson, but very almost porcelain-like skin, porcelain and doll-like almost, and kind of a little more fragile. So the Neptune co-ruler influence there, and then Ginger Rogers was a Sun in Cancer woman ruled by the moon in Pisces. So she actually had the moon in Pisces moon. And if you look at her face, you can see it. You can see the glamour and the femininity and the softness. So that's why it's so important to look at the moon sign for a Cancer person. And with these two actresses, you can really see it in their acting and in their faces. You can see the Cancer. Now, Nancy Olson, I didn't look her up. I'm not sure where her moon's in, but she also had kind of that kind of moony, glamorous look. It's interesting that the Cancer men I looked up tend to be what I would consider not necessarily classically handsome or good looking, kind of more average to me. But the women, for some reason, the women with the Cancer influence, the moon seems to, and maybe that's just by the very nature of being a woman with the moon, I don't know, because there's a connection there. But they seem to be of a higher attractiveness in general, and of that feminine, sort of that feminine energy, and feminine being more reserved, kind of more quiet, more reserved. So all these people are all Cancer people born this week, Cancer period, ruled by the moon and co-ruled by Neptune. And I'll leave you with a quote here. Oh, we have the symbols, of course, the crab And I mentioned the turtles a couple weeks ago, Cancer with turtles, but this constellation is Gomisa, which is dogs. It's a dog constellation. And I'm willing to bet that people born this week are really big dog people. And it could also indicate dog bites or violence, metaphorical violence because of a dog bite, because of the constellation. So some people born this week, Ian Curtis definitely experienced that in his personal life. Ed Kowalczyk is notorious for not making up with his band members and being moody and fighting with them. Same with Thoreau, odd things in his life there. Stuart Copeland, constant moodiness and fighting with his bandmates. Christine McPhee, same thing, constant at odds with Stevie Nicks. I'm not sure about the actresses. So, again, that defense, that Cancer energy, they'll say they're not fighters, but they're always seem to be defending something, maybe when there isn't something to defend. But Henry David Thoreau said, if a man does not keep pace with his companions, perhaps it is because he hears a different drummer. Let him step to the music he hears, however measured or far away. That's awesome. That's awesome. I love Thoreau and Emerson equally. They're just off the chart with the insight. But that's just so cool. Let him step to the music he hears, no matter however measured or far away. So again, the Neptune decadent, that sounds a little Pisces to me. Marching to the beat of your own drummer could be Piscean, that could be Aquarius, and doing things that's different than other people. I think that's beautiful. So, anybody that watches my live streams regularly knows I'm pretty honest, and I think I'm getting more and more comfortable with doing these, and these are really fun for me. So I'm probably going to get a little more, not brutal, but I'm going to keep it real as much as I can, and I want to educate people and send my messages out with the periods, and I don't want to sugarcoat things too much. Of course, anything could be positive or negative depending on how we use it. But there are definitely very strong essence of the elements that people use here, and it's important. We don't always see some of the more flawed areas of our character, whereas our family members that love us and are close to us. Carolyn says, nice quote from Thoreau. Thanks, you're welcome. A lot of people, our family members and loved ones, can see those flaws in us, and that can help us improve. It's okay to have flaws, but we should try to improve and increase natural confidence. I think that's what life's about. Even a little bit improvement here and there, it's a good thing. And also, I mentioned the symbols of the crab and dog. The stars this week, the constellation translates to the weeping one. Isn't that interesting? And that goes back to the mythology and Ptolemy, and coining it the weeping one, or weeping, something to do with water or crying and possibly violence. So, and again, the violence isn't necessarily physical or literal. It could be mental, it could be emotional. And so the moon there, this is a really good time, especially tonight, because it's the new moon in Cancer. It's a really good time to have a fresh start and to set your intention for the next month. So when you think of like the first week in August, set your intention now, set your clock to where you want to be in August. When I do these live streams every week, I'm by myself in here, but I feel a different energy every week. And it's not just my physical energy. Some weeks I'm more tired than others, or my allergies. But it's not physical that I'm talking about. It's just a different energy depending on how the season's moving and the period. So you can also tune into that. And you don't have to even label that. You don't have to call that psychic or mediumship or anything weird or divination. If you don't believe in that, or you're not feeling that you just tune into it. You got to get a little quiet though. Got to get quiet. I'm learning as I get older, trying to get my kids to do this, is to enjoy, slow down, and there's these great moments in every day or every week or every month of our lives. There's bad ones too. There's sad ones, but there's these good moments, and all of us are always rushing. Like, look at everybody on the highway, always rushing. You think everyone does everyone really have somewhere to be? I would guess 9 out of 10 of those people have nowhere to go. So we're just driven, no pun intended, we're just driven by our anxieties and our fears, and it's just coming out through our driving and rushing and filling with our hands and all that stuff. So this is a really good time, especially with Cancer. Set your intention with the earth and where you want to be like in the next month, because the Cancer period is it. And as we get closer to the cusp period, we're going to start feeling that intense heat, or at least here in the Northeast, we're going to start feeling that intense heat of Leo. So that's going to change because we're going to start to feel that fire quality along with the water. So that's interesting. It's interesting. But it's weird. I've been so jazzed to go to the pool. Now, I like the beach, I like water, I like pools, but I'm not someone that's like a big pool person that like lays out and is there for hours and hours and hours and goes 3 times a week. And these are those pool people and those beach people that are always living there. I'm not like that. I appreciate it. But for some reason, this period, this Cancer period, I'm so into just being near water, and just especially being in the sunshine, getting my vitamin D, and going near the ocean or the clean pool water. It's just so nice and so calm. And I think that's really, really a big thing. If any of you, I know there's not a lot of you watching, but if anyone knows Cancer people, please just pass on that message. Said, this is what Astroscoop said. Obvious. It's so obvious. Get near water, get near your element, kind of thing. And we have a family member that lives in Massachusetts, and she lives literally on a marsh on the water, and she is a Cancer 3. So again, you can't make this stuff up. It's pretty cool. So okay, let's see. All right, let's look at the cosmic weather here. So here is the chart. Try to get it. You can see it. So right over here. Oops, sorry. Right over here. Got the sun and moon and Cancer there. And you can see my writing. It says new moon, which is momentum and building. So any structure, and this goes for all year, all 12 months. Doesn't matter what the new moon is in. It gets to be in each sign, all 12. But again, there's nothing stronger than the sun and moon in Cancer to get close to all the creatures in the earth and the fertile aspect of Mother Nature, and it's waxing. It's waxing to the moon, which is a harvest. The keywords are mother, moon, comfort, water, and protection. So that's what Cancer is all about, that new moon there. And Venus is also there. So this is a really good time to remember to tell your loved ones that you do in fact love them, that you really do. People like to hear it. I think it's very important to actually say the words, unless you're nonverbal and you can't say it. It's important to actually speak up and stand up and say to people, I love you. Even if you annoy me or frustrate me, that's human, but I love you. I think that's very, very important. And in the Cancer time with the new moon, there's your homework, so to speak. And with that and all the outer planets in Pisces, again, like last week, very, very strong water energy that we have. And it's wonderful. And nothing going on with Scorpio. And the Pluto in Aquarius, which is the outer planet, is now retrograde. So it's at 1 degree of Aquarius, which is squaring all the early fixed signs but it's retrograde, so it's going to pull that energy even more. So if someone is born like a Leo coming up, like a Leo born on July 24th or 25th, or a Scorpio born on the 23rd or 24th, they would be getting an opposition. Leo would be getting the opposition. Scorpio and Taurus would be getting the square from Pluto. So that's very powerful, very, very powerful. And I know a lot of astrologers are talking about that. Oh, and one last thing I just realized, Mercury, which is direct, is now in Leo. So well before we go into the sign of Leo, we're still 16 degrees away from Leo, but we now have Mercury in Leo. So that's another, that'll help with expression with your family and friends, and be more expressive. I can feel it. So I think that's a wonderful thing. But here it is, 8:05, and I wish we had some more people in here. If there's anyone else, if anyone have a question about Cancer tonight, this will be the last time I talk purely about Cancer, and then I'm a full week ahead. I've kind of gotten somehow where I'm 2 ahead. I'm not like tonight. We should really be talking about the Cancer 2 period, which we're in until like the 10th. But I'm kind of a week off. So, but next week we'll be talking about from like July 19th, and then that week we'll talk about the Cancer Leo cusp, and that's an interesting cusp. Anything with Leo is interesting. So that'll be more of the feeling of Mother Nature. The Cancer feelings and the watery feelings will get a little more solid and a little warmer, which is good. Cancer kind of teaches Gemini, kind of teaches the sign before it, and then Leo can kind of teach Cancer. So that's kind of a way I look at the zodiac too. You can teach the sign before you with those different strengths and that thing. But yeah, I love that quote from Thoreau. I had about 7 different quotes from him, and I thought that was a really good one for Cancer. But Cancer people born this week, I know I mentioned a lot about the defensiveness, but other than that, behind that, there's a lot of really, really good caring qualities and really good humor, and with the Neptune can be kind of fey and creative. They just need healthy outlets. We all do. Everybody, every sign needs outlets. But water signs in particular really need strong personal creative outlets. And Cancer, probably more so than Pisces or Scorpio, needs it because the moon is changing every 2 days. So the moon is always changing and going, we're juggling signs. So I would imagine a sun in Cancer, a moon in Cancer, or a Cancer rising person is feeling those changes acutely. I mean, some people more than others, like 3 times a week, 2.5 to 3 times a week, we're changing. So like I said, a baby born tonight would be the sun and moon conjunct in Cancer. A baby born in 3 days from now, that would probably be, it's going to be either late Leo or early Virgo. So they would be sun in Cancer, moon in Leo, or moon in Virgo, which is very different, obviously, than the moon in Cancer. So that sort of thing. So the moon. But next week, this is the last full period, and we'll definitely talk about Leo and things like that. And I think things look good. Things look good for Cancer. Really, this is really good energy for Cancer, getting the solar return. And again, it's funny. It's not supposed to. The sun's not setting here for another 19 minutes, so it's 2 minutes shorter than it was last week when I was talking to you. But I can already see the difference. It's because another thing we forget is in the morning now, it's getting the sunrise is later, depending on where you are. If you go way out to the tip of Massachusetts, like Cape Cod, it's because of that latitude or something. Their sunrise is so early there. So then you could be 4, 5, 6 hours away, which isn't that far on Earth, and it can be so different. So it's in the morning and at night. So that's like the squeezing of the day and the energy. And again, it's still quiet. The birds are much quieter. The only creatures that have been crazy this week are the ants. Has anyone else noticed ants? I mean, we have armies of them in the front. It's the little guys, the real little soldiers, and they have all sorts of colonies. And what they've been doing is they've been honoring the dead insects, the tiny ants. I'm not talking these. None of them are even medium sized, because we've had the massive ones too, the real strong, like carpenter, like the queens and kings. But these are the tiny little ants, and they honor the beetles and the dead mosquitoes, and they do something with the carcass. They honor it, they move it, they work. It's like a skyscraper, like a building, and you watch them and they move it, and then the next day they're gone, and all these carcasses are gone. It's very interesting, very, very interesting. So cool, ants are cool. All right, thank you so much for tuning in. Last thing, my daughter was in a grumpy mood today. I love my daughter, but she today was Grumparama, Grump City today. So we're all allowed that, right? Absolutely. So she was grumpy. So my son drew this for me. Now he doesn't really know that much about astrology, but I said, "Can you draw something for me?" And he goes, "What do you want?" And I said, "Well, I'm talking about Cancer, which is the crab, turtles, and maybe a dog symbology. Those are the creatures associated with Cancer." And he said, "All right, I'll try something." He said, "Don't look." And then he goes, "Does a rabbit work?" I guess that's cute, right? And rabbits are white, so that's why I didn't color it in. So thank you to my son for doing that with the carrot. He's quite an artist too, so I think he's got talent there. So yeah, there's my son, the rabbit. Very cool. I don't know if there's any connection, but thank you for attending once again, Carolyn, and maybe Karen, and some couple other people that came in. So weekly live streams again are here, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Astroscoop 3801 on YouTube. I'm also on Twitter and Instagram, and so follow me there. And I should have a video. I'm doing less videos in the summer right now, just because I'm very, very busy. So I'm not doing quite one video a week. It's probably one video every 10 days, or maybe once every 2 weeks, and then probably we'll pick up more in the fall. So that's where we're at. I'm concentrating more on the live streams and trying to build this audience and build this channel. And every view, I appreciate every single view, because it's going to count towards the total of thousands of views to move Astroscoop forward. So I really, truly appreciate it. So happy new moon to everyone. Namaste, as Carolyn said. Really, really sensitive moon time. Good time to respect not only yourself, but really respect Mother Nature. We've heard some of that thunder and lightning lately. Mother Nature, wow, Mother Nature's powerful. So definitely respect her and respect your mom. Definitely. So thanks so much for tuning in. We'll see you next week. Be safe.